Welcome back to the Titanium Hangar. This is Mike, and happy Friday, everybody. Hope everybody is doing well today. Today we're continuing with the series of chronologically making masterpiece recommendations. Now, these are my favorite recommendations for masterpiece per character, starting from 1984, which we did a couple weeks ago. Today we're going to do 1985. In the future, we'll see 86, 87, and how 88 goes, and we'll get into all of this, and we're going to follow a checklist. This is going to sort of also include stuff yet to come. We're going to talk about all this and more coming up. All right, so here is the list that I took from TFW 2005, and it is a long list. There's a lot to it. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk about each one of these, what has been made, what's going to get made, and what I recommend. So let's get into talking about this. First on the list we're going to talk about is Blaster. Now, looking at this, on the left is the deformation space. Yes, I have the hips directed down a little bit too much in this picture. They can collapse up and make it look more normal, but I kind of like that one the way it was there. And then in the middle is Fans Toys. I think Fans Toys is the winner, but deformation space and Fans Toys are very close. The only difference is really the paint job. And then getting into the very right one is KFC and KFC's Transistor, which looks great, has an amazing paint job, but it's a little stylized, a little dated. So these are the three options that are out there. The one in the center, Fans Toys, I would recommend the most because I do like that one a lot, the most. But Deformation Space is a pretty close. If you want tune accurate, those are two to go for, and I would definitely recommend it. But Transistor, people still like the stylized look, and I really love the super metallic paint job on it. Next up is Jetfire, and it's not really fair for Jetfire because it's really Skyfire. So Skyfire is what's getting made. These are the three options that fit Masterpiece scale. On the left is Fans Toys, which is great. It's a good one. It's got more heroic proportions than the actual show and cartoon accurate. In the middle is a KO oversize of Hasbro / Takara's Siege version of Jetfire / Skyfire. And it looks pretty cool. And that's a pretty good option also. As you can see, it's the tallest of all of them. And on the right is Takara's, a little bit shorter than the rest, but I think it looks the most cartoon accurate. And oddly enough, in hand, I like it the most. And it does look the best, in my opinion, overall. But those are the three options. You can also get a KO of Takara for like 125 or 115 or something like that. And the KO of the Siege oversize is about 120, something along those lines too. So those are some great options there. Fans Toys one, I haven't checked prices on them lately, but it generally runs in the $250 to $350 range, depending on which version you get. And there goes my Skyfire options. Again, my favorite character when it comes to Transformers. Next, we're getting into Omega Supreme. Now, this is a Cheem picture. That is, Cheem is crediting Sixo's artwork for one of these pictures or more than one of these pictures in here. So I want to put that out there. And so looking at this, this is DX9 versus the Fans Toys versus the Wei Zhang. Now, a lot of people don't really know much about the Wei Zhang one, but in my opinion, the Wei Zhang one didn't look the best in bot mode, but it was a fun toy, and it actually had a motorized tank that goes around the track. But when it comes to the best looking one in bot mode, I really think it's between the DX9 and the Fans Toys, and there are some aspects that I like more about DX9, some aspects I like more about the Fans Toys. It's really all up to you, depending on which one you like the most. Getting in here, there is the alt mode variations, as you can see. The tiny tank in the Wei Zhang, so it runs around the track much easier than these bigger ones. And with that, I don't think you really can go wrong with any of the sets, but I think Wei Zhang has shot up in price and is almost impossible to get, but I haven't checked eBay or tried to get my hands on one, but I know since Wei Zhang went under, harder to get, DX9 and Fans Toys probably be easier to get. Next on the list is Perceptor. Now, this one is really between X-Transbots and Fans Toys, and it's really shocking that this is a 2-year-old battle. We ended the Perceptor war 2 years ago, and no one else decided to join the party. But X-Transbots on the left, Fans Toys on the right. Here's what I gotta say: you can not go wrong with either one. They both look great. And with that, there's actually a repaint coming for the X-Transbots one to look more toy colored. But I will have to say that I think that Fans Toys etches out X-Transbots just a little bit. When you get them in hand, you compare them both side by side. I just kind of like proportions, and the paint slightly better on the Fans Toys, maybe 10%, 12% more than the X Transbots, but really, you can't go wrong. And X Transbots includes tiny little minifigures. It's a nice little touch, and they did that. Takara has some with their Skyfire, so you start getting a little collection of minifigures, technically for free, since they're included in these releases. Okay, now to get into Shockwave, in my opinion, there's only two competitors. There's a third one, Fans Toys. I never cared for that one myself. A lot of people do, so you can go look that one up if you're interested, but I think there's two top competitors, and Takara wins aesthetically, and Takara wins if you get the plus. The color is more what I want out of the color, but sadly, I only have what they call the Lavender Wave, so it's not as purpler as this one. The Cloud9, on the other hand, on the right side there, Quake Blast, looks really good. He's a bit on the stylized side. A lot of people say that they copied engineering from the Fans Toys one, but it doesn't matter. I think that the overall bot looks pretty good, looks pretty cool, and the all mode looks pretty good. But these are both great options out there. Cloud9's much heavier. It's got some die cast in it, and it is a deep purple of a paint job. They did do about 4 different colors and a clear one, but those are the two options for Shockwave that I recommend both one. Equally, I would say if you can get the Takara Plus one somehow, that's the one to go for. Next up is Grapple, and at the same time, Inferno. They do the same things for the most part, although their alt modes are different. One's a fire truck, and one does something different with his crane. Now, looking at all of these, it's really a close call on all these. The only real difference from Takara to the rest of them that people love about Takara is the fact that the crane or the ladder, all that kind of stuff, can fold up into the body, and the rest of them have it hanging off the back in one way, shape, or form. I hear that most recently we had the X Transbots one get released. This is an old picture that has great comparisons of them, but people love the X Transbots version. And it's interesting too that years after they announced it, they had the Inferno one, they called it Dante, and then of course all these recolors, including this one. This is an excellent looking figure for the X Transbots. I also have the Mastermind Creations for myself as my representation in there, but I use the Takara one for Inferno. These are all good options. Make Toys I never had anything to do with, but I think they're all decent options. Whichever one you want to get might be based on price. All right, next we're going to get into Hoist. We did do Trailbreaker last time. Hoist evidently came out in 85, and I want to say that looking at all these, I like Takara the most. Takara is the one on the right, and I think it looks the best. I think it does the most correctly, but it's not perfect. Nothing's perfect. The X Transbots is in the middle. It still holds up very well. It's very good looking Hoist, and if that's the Hoist you want to go with, run with it. They also made one that has more of a metallic look to it. This is their cartoon version. I did not pick up their metallic one at first. And Hoist is one of those characters I'm like, do I even need a Hoist? And that's why I kind of passed on earlier Hoist options. And then on the very left is the Fans Toys, which looks great, and it cleans up the best from the back. They do a lot of great things with the Fans Toys one. It's a huge, heavy weight, brick of weight. It's not brick of articulation, though. But looking at all of them, yeah, I still, to this day, feel like the Takara one that most recently came out is the best. And I would recommend that one, but I still don't think you can go wrong with any of these 3 options in your collection. So as it currently stands right now in the market, there is Bad Cube and Takara for Red Alert. And with that, I would recommend Bad Cube. I have that one, but there's also DX9 getting back in the game, and they're coming out strong, making a Sideswipe. Now, they haven't announced they're going to make a Red Alert, but it's an assumption anytime you make a mold that has obvious repaints that they're going to do all the repaints. But that's not a guarantee in life, but it's just an expectation. So right now, it's too soon to say how good the DX9's going to be, but it looks very promising. As it stands right now, I'd recommend the Bad Cube. But maybe in 6 months, 8 months, a year, I'll be recommending the DX9 when that one comes out. Probably. It might be 2 years till they get the repaint out. But still, I always felt the Takara one on the right is just too stocky, too wide. Even as the Sideswipe mold, the original mold, I just felt like it was just too wide of a chest. And then the lower legs were just too clunky. But still, decent options. Either way, Bad Cube wins this round. Next up is Smokescreen, and this is Takara on the left, and on the right is the future DX9 that they're working on their prow. Now, we would assume they're going to remold their prow into Smokescreen. I think that Takara did a pretty good job. I think that any company, including DX9, can come along and do a better job, give them the opportunity to one-up them. But the originals were some of the better of the car bots. The Datsun brothers were one of the better molds of the car bots that needed the least improvement. And in fact, there are plus versions that make them look more cartoony. But I would say if you're collecting right now, we don't know how long it's going to be till we see DX9 come out with repaints, let alone even their original one. So the Detective is probably what it's called. But anyhow, I would still suggest Takara for now. And if you want to be on the cheap, go the KO route. Next on the list is Tracks. And I got to say that Tracks is literally the only game in town as Takara right now. A lot of people complain about Takara. This is another one where the KO is better. It's improved from the original. And it's not a bad. I think Takara's looks great on a shelf. But as for a figure, maybe it's got its limitations. Now we get this other one over here. This is Star Toys stepping in, and they did that amazing. Well, we'll see their Blitzwing here in a bit, but this is a very promising looking version of Tracks. Looks like it's going to be way improved over what Takara did, and of course, it's a lot newer. There's some modern engineering that's going into this. So I do look forward to checking this figure out and have a look at it, but as it stands now, we don't know how long it's going to take for Star Toys to come out, but they moved real quick with their Blitzwing, and I'm sure you can score a really cheap version of Takara because a lot of people will be wanting to offload theirs. Anyway, those are the two options. One's here now, one comes sometime in the future. Next up, we have Beachcomber, and I'm going to say that the clear winner in this department is Fans Toys. It is significantly taller than the X-Transbots, but for the longest time, X-Transbots was the best, and we're talking like 6 years. The X-Transbots was the most sought after. Every time they reissued, it sold out fast, and then secondary prices went through the roof. But the Fans Toys one is even more cartoon. The proportions are a little bit better on it. The paint is nice. I actually kind of think it's even shinier on the X-Transbots. I don't think it's painted, though. I think it's bare plastic, but there's also a green G2 version that X-Transbots made, so it's kind of fun to have both versions. I would recommend Fans Toys. Number one, in the Beachcomber department. We're not going to get back into the iGear days, because those were sub-masterpiece scale. But yeah, as it stands, I put my X-Transbots in the all mode because it looks great as a dune buggy, and I keep my Fans Toys on the shelf in bot mode. Next on the list is Cosmos, and I will have to say that I don't think you could truly go wrong with any of these. I think all the options are decent, excellent options that are out there. But the clear winner, according to pretty much everybody that has one or more of these, it's X-Transbots Class 2. They're actually reissuing the metallic painted version pretty much everywhere, but Showz's got it, and remember TH reviewer code. There's the Toy World Space Racer, which I think that's a fine one too, but I think that the alt mode on that one seems a little bit like the saucer is too small. And then on the MMC or the Omni, that one also looks really good. Its saucer mode is bigger, but overall I think the happy medium that's the best is the X-Transbots. But in bot mode, you really can't go wrong with any of the options that are out there. They all look great. They're all decent. One does one thing a little bit different than the other. But there we are with all of your options for Cosmos. Next up is Powerglide. It's Powerglide. I think that the difference between Fans Toys on the right and the DX9 on the left, the big difference between the two of them is the massive size difference. And you don't see it as much in the bot mode, but you do see it in the bot mode. You see it way more in the alt mode. But with this, it's really hard to say which is a clear winner in the bot mode, which is usually what I care about the most. They both look decent in the bot mode, and depending on where your mind's eye of scale and how they should scale fits in with your collection, then you might seem to think that the DX9 fits better in bot mode. And with all of that, I think that either way, you're winning if you buy either one of these. I think that the Fans Toys feet are a little weird. The way they did it in the lower legs are a little weird the way they did it. And so even with DX9, though, the legs have some protruding stuff on the side. I think either one, I'd give it an equal for Bob, but let's look at the alt mode. Well, I actually didn't have a comparison next to the DX9 in alt mode, but that's versus G1. This thing is massive. It is huge. The Fans Toys is huge in alt mode, and how they got to that point is just an insane transformation. I've never gone back, though. It's still in alt mode, but it's also quite impressive. Next up is Seaspray, and I want to say that this is another one of those cases where X-Transbots wins in this case. Fans Toys came out with the 1.0 on the left, which, factoring out the character, was a decent looking figure. It was an okay figure. It was an okay bot transformer, but it wasn't a good Seaspray. So they said, okay, well, let's go back to the drawing board. Instead of bringing out a Blitzwing, let's go ahead and do a 2.0 and try to do better. But I still don't think they matched Neptune, which is what X-Transbots did on the right. So I would recommend X-Transbots over the Fans Toys. But if you just want the Fans Toys, you can get the Fans Toys. Those are all of your options out there, and I have them all. So I don't really have a dog in the fight here, other than the fact that I personally like Neptune more. A little lighter than the 2.0 Fans Toys, though. There was also a company called Ace Toys, and they were going to make a Seaspray. They had made other mini bots. They did an okay version of Cliff Jumper, but that never saw the light of day. Next up is Warpath, and Fans Toys is the clear winner on this one. On the right is the Bad Cube. On the left is what I was swinging as a Hasbro. It was a filler, a fill-in. There's also another one out there, a third masterpiece, that's Final Victory, which is an okay stand-in also. But Fans Toys is a clear winner here, in my opinion. Nothing is actually perfect, but it's a decent representation, and it's the best. It's the best. The Bad Cube one I always thought was a bit clunky and way too big for his own being, but a lot of people felt like he's a tank, so he should be big and bulky, but the animation would disagree on that one. So anyhow, Fans Toys for Warpath 2024. What was this? Was this like 3 years ago? 2021? Next up, we're going to get into the Coneheads, which I have made a video about that, and there's a kind of a lack of Coneheads on the market, but on the left is Takara. And that was Takara's old mold, the MP11 mold, revised to make them into the Coneheads. And they were okay, but I wouldn't call them great. And then Make Toys came out, and I feel like Make Toys did them better. I think Make Toys is a better set and is the best set if you want cartoon accurate, and they look good on the shelf. Now, they're not painted. It's more like the plastic has a nice sheen to it, so it does shine. And like on the shelf next to Fans Toys, from a distance, they look similar with the shininess, but I really recommend on the right, the Make Toys. There's also one more set. The Toy World and also Zeta made the same mold, but they had their shinier paint, I believe. The Toy World set's nice. These are tall figures, and they look good. They are a bit stylized, but they look really good on the shelf, and they were my stand-in until I completed the Make Toys set, which is my favorite, but these aren't bad either. Next up, we have got Skids. The character Skids. On the left is Takara's, and I haven't really stopped to give them both good looks over. I did not get Takara because I didn't think the character warranted me getting yet another version. But I think they both look great. It depends on which one you like the most. I hear the emphasis for the Takara one was on the alt mode, but I still think they both look great. The right is the X-Transbot Savant, and I think they did a great job with it too. So looking at both of these, I didn't get the Takara, so I don't have it in hand to tell you all the differences in the feels and how I feel about it other than just looking at a picture. But the X-Transbot Savant is a pretty good figure overall. So with that, I would recommend either one. At this point, it's just which one you think looks the best or which one you find for the best price. Next up, we're just going to lump all the Dinobots into one. I do believe that people that go in on one set of Fans Toys or one set of the Gigapower stick with that set because they scale together better and they're going for the similar aesthetics for each group. Now, On the left, you've got Fans Toys. Fans Toys, for the most part, aside from their EXs and some of their offshoots, are more cartoon accurate than any other set that's out there. And with that, Takara made Grimlock and gave up. And that's how that worked with Takara. So you have to depend on one or the other to complete your set in here. And both of these have much bigger Grimlocks than what Takara made. Now, on the right is Gigapower. Now, Gigapower has 3 different versions. They have the Chrome, which you see here, which everything's shiny. They have the Metallic, which is less shiny. And then they have the Weathered. So that's kind of how it goes. The Metallic does have some Chrome bits here and there, but the Chrome has more Chrome all over. I opted for the Chrome set myself, and I'm very pleased with it, to tell you the truth. So I'm in on the Gigapower, but I don't really say there's anything wrong with going the route of Fans Toys. There's also Cesium for Slag. That was under the Perfect Fusion line. If you want to get and upgrade your Slag instead of going with Scoria. Still, you can't go wrong with either set. The only problem is you can go broke going for the Fans Toys. Next up we have Roadbuster. Now this is where it starts to say there's a lack of options in the market. And although there are options, believe it or not, this, in my opinion, is not Masterpiece scale. And this one was made by MMC, and it's Dicamos. And I think it's a cool looking one. It is beefier and bigger than other options that are out there. But yeah, it is bigger, although it's still, in my mind, kind of chug scale. It's bigger than the Fans Project. Again, Fans Project was right in line with the chug scale at the time. They truly weren't Masterpiece, in my opinion, but that's Roadbuster. Those are options. Next up, we have Whirl, and MMC made Whirl also stylized. It's more of a comic version, I believe. And I think it looks pretty cool. It's pretty interesting, but if I were going on a Whirl, I'd like one more G1 and bigger. This is smaller, and it is not super G1. It's all that's out there, so there's not options for this. So lack of options is not good when it comes to this. Anyhow, it's an option, MMC, if you're interested. I think they call it Turben, Turben. So the only third party that I see out there is the Mech Ideas version of Topspin and Twin Twist, and I have to admit that they are not even chug scale. They're a little smaller than the chug scale. And with that, I would recommend to go with Takara's, or Hasbro. Hasbro made them, Takara did recolors of them, but those are expensive. They're $100 figures from Hasbro, trying to track down from the whole Titan Returns era. Hasbro did everybody dirty, packing one of those in a later wave, and now they're both hard to get, and all these are better than the original G1. But Mech Ideas is third party, kind of small. Alright, so in the early days of DX9, Toy World, and Machine Boy's like some sort of a captain. I think that's a KO of the Fancy Cell Transportation Captain. Anyway, that one is smaller than the rest of these. So although it looks like the same size, it is much smaller than the rest of these. It's more of a chug scale. Toy World and DX9 are Masterpiece scale. Now, Toy World is a lot smaller than DX9 also, but it does sort of work in the realm of Masterpiece. Now, with all of this, the DX9 was touted as the best at the time, and aesthetically, I don't think it even was the best when it came out. I owned it for 5 days and sold it, but I have to admit, I have an appreciation for the design of that, what they're saying, Machine Boy or the Fancy Cell. But Fans Toys wins. Fans Toys wins. I've had my criticisms of it, and people get really mad when I criticize it, that it's not clean from the bag on this one. And some articulation is hindered, and the legs, the way the lower legs are, super giant, chunky lower legs. And there's some stuff about it that I don't think's perfect. But it's the best one on the market, and it doesn't look like anybody's even going to try to attempt to beat it anytime soon. So Fans Toys Thomas wins. It still is currently the winner. They've done a toy repaint of it, but very good looking, especially from the front. Starts to break down from the side and completely falls apart in the back. But it's a great looking figure. Best option on the market. Go with the Fans Toys. And if you can still track down one of the quote-unquote KOs, their alternate ones, you can get those too. Alright, next up is Blitzwing, and on the left is Fans Toys. Now, that's kind of a joke, how long it's been in production, and nobody's laughing except for the people that bought Star Toys. They're all laughing. Anyway, so Fans Toys on the left. In the middle is the KFC Ditka, and yes, it does come with the football. And then on the right is the Star Toys, which I believe is the best on the market right now. And I'm not sure Fans Toys is going to 100% beat it. See, that's where I'm at. Sometimes I feel that way. I get Fans Toys in hand and I'm like, yeah, Fans Toys wins. But I don't always feel that way. And so now that I'm looking at it side by side here, it's really hard for me to say, yep, I need to drop another $250 on the Fans Toys. I will, obviously. I've already got pre-ordered. But right now, if you can get your hands on the Star Toy, I think they're even reissuing it and doing another run. I would suggest that. The one on the right, it's fantastic. Looks great in all modes. Transformation, I mean, it's triple changer, so there's a lot going on with it. But the Fans Toys, I guarantee you, will be more involved. But that's my pick for Blitzwing. And Fans Toys, they might be the winner in 2030 when it comes out. All right, next we're going to get into Insecticons. And I've got to say that the top is Fans Toys, and I recommend them the most. They have a lot of kibble in the back. It's definitely an old design that they slightly modernized as they did reissues most recently, a year or two ago. The bottom on the right is Bad Cube. Now, that's the one I recommend the least. Not that they're bad at all, and they clean up the most in the back versus any of them. Just I feel like the proportions are just a little bit off on them, but they do look great. They look good on the shelf, and of course, the alt modes look fantastic. And then on the left is MMC, so it's kind of right in the middle. The MC's right in the middle between the two, and they do have a bit of kibble on the back. And the design, they have great proportions. They look good. So with this, you can't go wrong with any set also, but I still recommend Fans Toys the most, and they do have the most diecast, the most paint, and feel hefty. Now, Fans Project made some deluxe Insecticons that are more of the chug scale to scale with your Hasbro mainline stuff. This is a really, really old design, and they look okay. They're pretty cool. They came in, this is a TF Source set. It's a 3-pack set. And they sold them all separately, and then I guess they got them in one set specialty. But this seems to be the most common floating around if you're interested in these. But I still think X-Transbots is going to make them eventually. But even if X-Transbots doesn't, then we've got the Hasbro ones coming out. And Insecticons are insects. They can be a bit small. So your Hasbro ones might be good fillers. Alright, so getting into Devastator, I made a video showcasing a Devi of options. So you want to go check that out. Not a lot has changed since then, but some stuff has. We just obviously have some releases, some stuff going on, but they're still pretty much the same as what was going on then. But here we go with, on the left is the Toy World Constructor, which oddly enough, Zeta didn't make a Constructor or a Devastator. They made all these other designs that Toy World did, but not Constructor. And then on the right is the Make Toys Green Giant, which a lot of people use upgrade kits and stuff to make it look even better. And I mean, dialed out with a bunch of upgrade kits, it looks amazing. Standard, it looks okay, but it is significantly smaller than the Toy World. I believe it's 18 inches for the Make Toys on the right and 21 for Constructor on the left, and Constructor initiated the 21-inch scale. Now, we have a bunch of other options coming. Now, currently everybody feels like the Constructor is the best option that's out there. I think the bot modes are a little on the weak side, and I think that's where we're going to start seeing new competitors dominate in this realm, in this era. So we don't really have a whole bunch of combined pictures of every competitor that's coming, but we know we're getting some Fans Toys, X-Transbots. We've got MMC coming, but there's a smaller. Here is a comparison picture of what's coming for X-Transbots. None of this is actually released yet. We did get the long haul released from X-Transbots. We'll take a look at that here in a second, but it's pretty impressive. So I'll give you a recommendation here in a bit based on that. But looking at these three, as you can see, the MMC is going to be significantly smaller, and I actually might be wrong on the size of the bot. I think the size of the bot is bigger. I used this in one of my videos. So I think the size of the bot might be on par with the others. But the fact that it has to turn into the whole leg and thigh and no parts use, then with that, it does shrink down the combined bot a bit more. But it really is up to you, aesthetic, and what you like the most. Now, I would recommend, so far, X-Transbots has done a great job with this first release. Doesn't mean that the combined mode is going to do well, doesn't mean anything, but it's about $109 for one of these. And this is the light version, or the toy version, and I think that's a great option out there if you're interested in going either combined or even in bot mode. And I do think it looks more interesting than their standard one at 140, so I would recommend that. Now I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to keep up with all of it, but I'm going to get both versions of X-Transbots and Fans Toys, but I'm not going to get the MMC because it's only going to form to 18 inches, but it'll probably be more fun. Now I'm not sure if I have found a better Devastator picture for X-Transbots, but so this is, in my opinion, the best we've got so far for combined mode pictures for X-Transbots on the right, MMC on the left. Fans Toys combined mode, I'm not sure if I've come across one yet that I want to hold on to, but this is where we're at so far with these. And I gotta say, I do think that X-Transbots looks the best in combined mode for everything I've seen so far. All we've really got is a light comparison so far from the Fans Toys. Get an idea what that's going to look like. Doesn't look bad, but what's cleaner to you? Lastly, we're getting into the 1985 Melloways, which includes the Omnibots. And I gotta say that X-Transbots is doing them and doing them well. So far we've got their Overdrive, and I think that looks fantastic. And that was Fioravante. We still got their Yaguchi and Matus coming, but I think they're doing a really good job with them. And I've really been impressed with their Carbots, especially these really obscure ones. And nobody else is slated to do these. Not even Hasbro. And nobody is doing the Power Dashers as far as I know. But Hasbro's put them all out. They did one shady maneuver and made you chase down the third one in a 3-pack. They've done that. They're doing that with the Deluxe Insecticons too. But those would be fillers if you care. So let me know what you think about this list for 1985. Did you find any of this helpful? And leave any comments down below. Like, subscribe. Tadira Mayor out.